You're listening to the Down East Mike podcast, the quirky little podcast from Maine. And now, your host, Down East Mike. Why, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Down East Mike podcast. I'm Down East Mike, your host of this whimsical, quirky little Maine podcast. I hope you're all having a great day. Today is April 1st, 2022. It is Friday. Now, where it's April 1st, please don't let people fool you with things. They may tell you funny things today or try to mislead you in that April 1st tradition. So just be aware of that. That's out there, that people may try to fool you today because it is April Fool's Day. We have kind of a cloudy day down east today. The harbor looks calm at this time. There's not much wind. It's relatively mild out there. And we're shaping up for a pretty good day. We'll have the weather forecast in just a little bit. We have a lot going on today. First, with our disclaimer, our motto is that some of this is whimsy, some of this is true, and the interpretation of it all is entirely up to you. And we like to think of the podcast as a friendly place. It's all rainbows and unicorns. We don't focus on any of the hard news. There's plenty of bad news out there if you want to go find it. This is a place where we focus on happy things. Well, as much as we can. In today's episode, we have a salmon farm rising, 232 clam washing jobs being proposed. That's from 1971. An astronaut's temperament. It's a kind of an insightful article from 1971. Downtown Portland computer delivery. The Maine Mammal of the moment. A new poem. And much more. Let's start off with our word of the day. We went for an easy word today, but it's kind of weighty if you think about it. Pudding. Pudding is our word of the day. And the definition of pudding, according to our friends at Merriam-Webster, is a blood sausage. Oh dear, that sounds dreadful. Or a boiled or baked soft food, usually with a cereal base, i.e. corn pudding or bread pudding. Also described as a dessert of a soft, spongy, or thick, creamy consistency, especially one made with sweetened milk or cream cooked with a thickener such as eggs, flour, tapioca, or cornstarch, and usually flavored. A dish often containing suet or having a suet crust or originally boiled in a bag. The more I read this, the worse it gets. Oh dear, I hope you haven't had breakfast yet. But how about let's use pudding in a sentence. Sally took to the kitchen early, where one of her earliest memories was standing on a stool at her mother's stove, stirring the chocolate pudding. Here's another sentence. The proof isn't yet in these pitches pudding, but each points to a different, seemingly smarter steps toward a better online gaming ecosystem. That's a wonderful use of the word pudding. Pudding first came to us in the 13th century. Some of the other words that were coming around at that time were archer, arch, assail, assault, assemble, disturbance, dreadful, droopy, dropsy, easily, enhance, enjoin, elfish. What a wonderful time to have been around in the 13th century, all those words landing all around your ears every day. That's our word of the day, pudding. Think about that. Happy birthday today to Samuel in Poland, Maine. Samuel turns 10. He enjoys sledding, riding his bike, and skipping stones on camping trips to Moosehead Lake with his family. Happy birthday, Samuel. Mary of Belgrade turns 73 today. Happy birthday, Mary. Mary volunteers at the local library. She drives to Florida every October because she doesn't like to fly. I don't blame her there. Happy birthday to you, Mary. If you have a birthday greeting you'd like to have read on the air, just send that along to Mike at downeastmike.com, and we will read your birthday announcement. Well, our lead story of the day, a salmon farm rises, and that's up in Bucksport. That salmon farm, it's a Atlantic salmon, and they had planned to start construction for a couple of years now. It's been just cooking along there, and all the legislative stuff they've got to go through. It's at the former Verso paper mill, and they expect to start it this spring. They first were approved back in 2019. The company's called Whole Oceans, and they're doing their prep work on the site. It's got about 30 acres out of the 100 that will be under development. So some of the work at the site will be exploratory. The Whole Oceans officials said they'll have to remove old buildings and underground pipes that are left behind by the paper mill, as well as to find out how deep some of those concrete foundations are at the site. So they'll be doing site work through the rest of the year. The start date for construction's not yet been set. Unlike other large-scale aquaculture projects around the state, this one's enjoyed largely popular local support, and the Bucksport officials welcome the announcement. We're very excited for the future of Whole Oceans and Bucksport, said Rich Rotella, who's the Bucksport Community and Economic Development Director. Once up and running, Whole Oceans said its goal is to grow 20,000 metric tons of salmon a year. So that's a wonderful thing for Bucksport. Well, on this day back in 1971, in Searsport, a Sea and Shore Fisheries Department scientist was offering an alternative industry to propose plans for an oil refinery on Sears Island. Robert Dow of Ellsworth, he was speaking the fourth day at an Environmental Improvement Commission hearing on plans by Maine Clean Fuels, Inc. to build an oil refinery on Searsport. He said instead, we should use the area to make use of the natural clam population and construct 2 cleansing plants. Dow testified that the 2 facilities, which would employ a total of 232 people, would be designed much like one that's already in operation at nearby Stockton Springs. He said a plant could be made in Northport, another one near Sears Island, and that's where they were proposing a $150 million refinery. So Dow says the plants could cleanse clams from moderately polluted areas in a 48-hour cycle, handling about 150 bushels a day in each facility. So earlier in his testimony, Dow had referred to what he called substantial loss because of an oil spill that occurred in Penobscot Bay about a week prior to the hearing. Using federal standards, Dow estimated that the overall loss to clam harvesters would range from $200,000 to $1.3 million. He was referring to oil that seeped from a broken underground pipeline at the U.S. Air Force tank farm in Searsport. An undetermined amount of heating fuel seeped into Penobscot Bay through catch basins and drains. Dow said that a survey was taken at Long Cove where the oil first hit the bay, and it showed a 30% reduction in clam population killed by the oil, and the area that was tainted was about 10 acres. He says this amounts to about 3,000 bushels of lost clams. This oil slick traveled 5 miles across the bay to the Little River Clam Flats, where about 550 bushels of clams, 5% of the population, have been destroyed. During his presentation, a plastic cooler filled with oil-coated clams was given to the commission. Now, that would be something you probably wouldn't want to leave like in your car on a hot summer day with the windows up. And you'd come out there, and I would imagine that would be a car that you would probably want to just burn candles or something inside of it, because my goodness, what a smell. A plastic cooler full of oil-coated clams. So that was back in 1971. They had some alternative ideas there, and it's interesting how that progressed over time. All right, our next article is about an astronaut's temperament, how to keep you cool and stay in shape. And it's posited here. Is it possible for an ordinary male, whether he is a teenage hippie or a successful middle-aged executive, to be as cool and confident as an astronaut? As Alan Shepard hovered over an unknown area of the moon looking for a place to land, his heart rate averaged only 80 beats per minute. For most men 47 years old, their hearts beat faster than that when they putter in the garden. Alan Bean, who walked on the moon in November 1969, appeared on television during Shepard's moon mission and seemed more poised and relaxed than the regular TV commentators. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? According to Charles Berry, chief physician for the spacemen, this super cool can be yours. A lot of people have the impression that astronauts are some kind of supermen who never get excited about anything or feel downcast, says the 47-year-old doctor. That just isn't true. Their secret is that they handle stress and tension better than most people. Barry has analyzed how they do it and has come up with a recipe that he's willing to share. Oh, thank you, Barry. He says, get and stay in good physical condition. Good health is important in handling any type of stress, says Barry. Exercise is a great outlet for tension and helps build an overall state of health. Many of NASA types ride bikes, work out in a gym, play tennis, swim, or jog. Get adequate rest and pace yourself. This is vital for mental as well as physical well-being. I find myself under tremendous stress during missions, he confesses. I get overcommitted and have too many demands on my time. When this happens, I do one thing at a time. Enjoy good food, but don't overeat. Watch calories and animal fat content. Avoid fad diets and eat nourishing, wholesome food. Several astronauts are inclined to get fat, Barry admits, and he has to warn them about weight. Stop eating all that chicken, Alan. They have superb willpower, and they're able to lose the added pounds by diet and exercise. Drink moderately, he says. If you drink, do it in moderation. I certainly feel alcohol is a great relaxer in moderation, Barry says. He enjoys a scotch or drinks made with gin or vodka and lime. But Barry is against pills. All of the astronauts enjoy a drink, but some don't even take aspirin, preferring other things. Finally, you should have a goal in life. Motivation is a tremendous factor in overcoming all kinds of difficulties, Barry points out. The goal that you try to reach should provide something of benefit to the world, and at the same time, you should get enough out of it personally to satisfy your ego. What wonderful advice. I hope it all resonates with you. Also in 1971, the San Fernando Valley was recovering from a February 9th earthquake that took 64 lives. I don't know if you remember that one. They had a strong aftershock on Wednesday. that caused heavy damage. Some residents said that Wednesday's tremor was worse than the original quake. About 6:52 a.m. in the west end of San Fernando Valley, just north of downtown Los Angeles, and that was the scene of the most destruction in the February 9 quake. A wide area of the valley was rocked, but damage was concentrated in Granada Hills. Police said that about 25 homes in that area had experienced serious damage, such as cracked foundations and shifted walls. That was in 1971. They've had more than 220 aftershocks since the February 9 quake. We're fortunate here in Maine that we don't have too many quakes, but they've said that we're due for one, and we could have like a 6.0 at some point. There was one off by Harbor, about a 4 point something, and that was a few years back. And that was far enough offshore that it didn't do any damage, but even in the living room in Bucksport, the house shook just a little bit, and so we knew that it had happened. Oh, how about an advertisement from 1971? You've got it pretty soft this Easter, softer than ever, with this easy-does-it ham glaze made with Revere's new soft-pack brown sugar. Packed fresh and soft, it stays soft for you every time you use it. Have it soft. Get soft-packed brown sugar from Revere. And it's got a picture of the bag of light brown sugar, and there's a ham there that you can tell that they were going to do their easy-does-it ham glaze. It's just, even again in black and white, it is stunning to behold. That image there just makes you want to go get some brown sugar and make a ham glaze. They've actually got a recipe here too. They gave you a little bit more for your money with ads back in the day. The Easter ham glaze. Here's the easiest, most delicious ham glaze we've come across. 4 ingredients, and you've got it made. Mix 1.5 cups of Revere brown sugar with 1/3 cup juice from a can of sliced pineapple, 2 tablespoons of vinegar, and half a teaspoon of ground cloves. You're supposed to remove the ham from the oven 30 minutes before baking time is up. Pour off the fat drippings. Score the ham fat in a diamond pattern, very important. Stud with whole cloves. Decorate with pineapple slices on toothpicks. What a visual feast. Spoon glaze over the ham evenly until completely coated. Return the ham to the oven for 30 minutes and spoon glaze from pan over the ham 2 or 3 times while baking. Use this recipe and get used to having it soft with Revere brown sugar. And they list their address quite simply as Revere Sugar Refinery, Boston, Mass. 02109. Apparently you can't miss it if you head towards Boston. And another ad from 1971, My Tea Fine, and that's with a T, My Tea Fine, Rich and Ready Chocolate Pudding. It's the first pudding in a can that tastes like it came from a pot. Each individual serving of new My Tea Fine Rich and Ready Pudding is so rich in flavor, so thick and creamy it tastes like you cooked it yourself. Just pop off the top and dig in. Chocolate, chocolate fudge, vanilla, caramel, the most delicious thing that ever happened to pudding. Now individual servings come in a pop-top can for lunches, snacks, desserts, you name it. And they've got a picture here of the Mighty Fine Rich and Ready Chocolate Pudding can with the pop-top lids just set off to the side and they've got a handle on the can so it looked like it came from a pot. So cute and thoughtful. Well, our main mammal of the moment is, continuing with our weasel family, the Mustelidae, the pine marten, Martis americana. And this is a little, it's a member of the weasel family. It looks a little more like a cat, again like the fisher. It has a long bushy tail, a teddy bear face. They were hunted for their long silky fur. They were also called or marketed as a sable. Their coat is brown or tan with a lightish yellowish or orange coloring on their throat and chest. Now, I've seen just one of these in the wild in my lifetime, and that was in Bucksport. He was in continuous motion on a field of snow and darting about the base of trees in and out of the bushes. They're very distinctive, always in motion, and they're unmistakable. You look at it and think, well, maybe it's a squirrel, but it's very distinctly something different. A pine marten, they're quite rare. The Athabascan people of Alaska explained how the pine marten got its orange marking. It's from Myths and Legend of Alaska by Catherine Berry Judson. Long ago, a hungry marten went to an Indian camp. The Indians around the campfire were eating salmon. Marten sat still and watched them. He was hungry, and he watched this Indian and then that. Then an Indian threw at him a piece of red salmon. It struck Marten on the breast, and the reddish mark is there even to this day. And now you know how he got his mark. Martens live across the northern tier of North America, wherever forests are dense, full of hollow and fallen trees. And this is where they're found when they're not looking for prey. They're omnivores. They eat rodents and other small mammals, also birds and berries. They're mostly nocturnal, but they will hop about looking for voles. They chase squirrels and chipmunks through the high branches of trees. The Irish call them tree cats. The males will rest in the canopy, often in clump branches of a witch's broom, which is an abnormal growth caused by rust fungi. They're solitary and territorial except during the summer mating season. Their natural predators include mammals, eagles, and hawks. Humans have pushed the marten and other sylvan species out of southern New England by forest clearing and development. We have from the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife from 1986, there was a report that they produced on the pine marten in Maine. They're talking about Maine is at the current southerly limit of the species range in eastern North America. Considerable range loss at that time has occurred throughout its original southerly distribution due to land use changes and other exploitation. In New Hampshire, it was listed as threatened, but the Maine population at the time was secure. Also from that report, the marten prefer forested habitats, especially those dominated by mature softwood trees with medium to high canopy closure while avoiding large open areas, particularly in winter, and wetlands. Prized as a fur bearer, we've already talked about that. The population trends, mainly harder. A trapper and fur bearer from Brewer in the late 1800s reported marten to be common in much of Maine at that time, with high sable catches in some areas. However, by 1940, they reported the species to exist only in northern and northwestern Maine and to be very rare even in those areas. Throughout Maine, the population steadily increased up to the 1960s, and by the 1970s, the population had reached its highest level and then stabilized or declined since then. There was a transplant program in the early 80s, and they've moved them about a bit. The season for trapping was reopened in 1973. The trapping licenses peaked at about 5,600 in 1980 and then declined or stabilized after that to about 4,800. One last story on the Pine Mountain. This comes to us from the Wabanaki, and it mentions Glooskap. And Glooskap, we love him. Glooskap was so glad for his grandmother's arrival to the Micmac world, he called upon Asbistaneku, I mangled that one, a marten swimming in the river, to come ashore. Marten came to the shore where Glooskap and grandmother were standing, and Glooskap asked him to give up his life so that he and his grandmother could live. Marten agreed. Grandmother then took Marten and quickly snapped his neck, then placed him on the ground. Glooskap, for the first time, asked Creator to use his power to give life back to Marten because he did not want to be in disfavor with the animals. Astronaut went back to the water, and in his place lay another Marten. Glooskap and Marten became friends and brothers forever. Because of Marten's sacrifice, Glooskap referred to all the animals as his brothers and sisters from that point on. And that's from the Micmac Knowledge in the Micmac Creations story, Lasting Words and Deeds by Stephen Augustine. Well, we're going to have the weather when we come back in a poem from Frank Norwood. We'll be back right after this. Welcome, tourists. And while you're in Maine visiting and working up an appetite, I hope you'll enjoy some of Captain Frank's Weasel brand crab meat. It's the finest crab meat this side of Nova Scotia. Wholesale only, but that don't matter. I'm sure you're going to work up an appetite and you'll eat it all. Oh, and by the way, please don't ask about our t-shirt. We've only got one left. All right, we thank our sponsor for that message, and our National Weather Service forecast for today, Friday, April 1st, 2022. For today, showers likely mainly between 9 a.m. and 11, patchy fog throughout the morning, otherwise mostly cloudy with a high near 55, so fairly mild temperatures for today. Chance of precipitations around 60%. For tonight, a 30% chance of showers. We're going to have winds out of the northwest gusting up to 20 miles per hour. New precipitation less than a tenth of an inch possible. And then for the weekend, looking pretty good for Saturday. Sunny with a high near 48, but we will have that strong northwest wind gusting as high as 30 miles per hour. Sunday looks a little cloudy and a high near 47, but the temperatures are moderating, and we're moving along in spring, folks. Okay, our poem today, handed off by Frank Norwood, a little bit longer than the other poem because we were criticized it was too short, bordering on limerick length, and so we'll try to extend these out. Frank says, but he writes what he can. He tries. Our poem of the day is entitled Pudding. Pudding is food we eat from a dish. At the end of a meal, it's more than a wish. We dream of chocolate, tapioca, and rice, rum butter and pumpkin, and other things nice. Boiled or instant, runny or thick, pudding is precious. Its memories stick. I thank you for listening. I'm Downeast Mike. I hope you and your loved ones enjoy a day full of grace, love, and kindness. We'll see you.